How Africans built pyramids before Egypt. They tell us that Egypt built the first pyramids, that Africa's glory began along the Nile. But what if the story didn't start there? What if long before the pharaohs rose, long before the hieroglyphs were carved, Africans had already mastered the art of building pyramids? Hidden across the continent lie structures older than Egypt's, built by forgotten civilizations that time tried to erase. This is the untold story of how Africans built pyramids before Egypt. Long before Egypt's Old Kingdom, Africa was already home to advanced societies. Archaeologists now know that the roots of human civilization began in Africa, not just biologically, but architecturally. In Sudan's Nubian region, ancient builders constructed stepped and conical pyramids that predate Egypt's by centuries. These were not small experiments. Some reached nearly 100 feet high. They were part of the Kingdom of Kush, a black African empire that would one day conquer Egypt itself, but even older evidence lies deeper south, in places that most textbooks never mention. The Nubians, whose land stretched from southern Egypt to central Sudan, are Africa's true pyramid masters. The pyramids of Meroe, Nuri, and El Kuru number over 200 structures, more than those found in all of Egypt combined. While Egypt's pyramids were built around 2600 BCE, many Nubian pyramids date back to 800 BCE, and some scholars argue their architectural tradition originated long before that, passed down from Proto-Nilotic cultures thousands of years earlier. These Africans didn't just imitate Egypt, they inspired it. For millennia, people moved freely up and down the Nile, exchanging knowledge, stone-cutting techniques, and spiritual beliefs. The gods of Egypt? Many have African roots from Nubia. The concept of the afterlife, of tombs reaching toward the heavens, it began in the south. But the most shocking evidence lies in the desert. Nabta Playa, deep in southern Egypt near the Sudanese border, holds stone circles and megaliths that date back to 7,000 years ago, at least 1,500 years before the first Egyptian pyramid. These early Africans built an astronomical observatory, perfectly aligned with the stars, especially Orion's belt, the same constellation that the later Egyptian pyramids mirrored. Who were these ancient architects? They were black Africans, cattle-herding communities who understood the stars, seasons, and the sacred geometry of the heavens. Their descendants, over generations, moved north and seeded the foundations of Egyptian civilization. In other words, before the pharaohs, there were the star builders of Africa. Across the continent, signs of advanced stonework appear where you'd least expect. In Algeria's Tassili Niger, ancient rock carvings show massive stone monuments, drawn thousands of years before Egypt's pyramids. Further west, in Niger, ancient ruins like Borku Enedi Besti suggest early megalithic cultures. In Nigeria, Ila Ife and Nok would later develop breathtaking sculpture and metallurgy, showing that architectural genius and artistic mastery were deeply rooted in African soil. It becomes clear, Egypt wasn't an isolated miracle. It was a continuation of a long, continent-wide tradition of African brilliance. Even further south, whispers of pyramid-shaped structures appear in oral history. In Ethiopia, the Aksumite kingdom built tall granite obelisks, some weighing hundreds of tons, carved from a single piece of stone. These were not just tombs, they were monuments of alignment and power, rising toward the heavens. In Nigeria and Cameroon, ancient shrines and step mounds mimicked pyramidic designs, symbols of ascent and divine connection. In Zimbabwe, the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, massive stone walls built without mortar, reveal a mastery of stone engineering rivaling any in the ancient world. All across Africa, the pattern repeats: stone, geometry, spiritual elevation. Different tribes, same instinct, to build toward the sky. For centuries, mainstream archaeology told a one-sided story. That civilization came to Africa, instead of being born from Africa. But the evidence keeps growing. The pyramids of Nubia, the observatories of Nabta Playa, and the megaliths of Ethiopia tell another tale, that Africans were the first to align heaven and earth through architecture. And yet, colonial scholarship buried these truths. Because the idea of black civilizations mastering math, astronomy, and architecture thousands of years ago challenged the racist myths of history. Today, African scholars and archaeologists are reclaiming that narrative. They're proving that the spirit of innovation didn't start in Greece or Rome or even Egypt. It started here, in Africa. So, what do these ancient pyramids mean for us today? They remind us that Africa is not a continent of lost potential. It is the mother of human genius. Our ancestors didn't wait for anyone to teach them geometry, architecture, or astronomy. They learned it by observing nature, by studying the stars, by building with purpose and pride. Their message still speaks.
Rise higher, build for eternity. Remember who you are.
Because long before Egypt, long before the world even knew the word civilization, Africans were already building pyramids. If this story opened your eyes, share it. Let the world remember where greatness began. This is Evolve Africa, where the forgotten truths of our continent rise again.